Any comments from the directors?
I got a thing or two. You all should have received, forwarded by Shelley, the announcement of the draft 2024 state flood plan, a public comment, which ends on June 17th. You may want to have a look at that draft state flood plan. And then I understand there's a Water Smart Award for Mud 6 be given at the 2024 annual convention of the AWBD at the awards luncheon on Saturday, June the 15th. And I'll get some more details on that. I can't go, so if there's someone who's going, they can accept the award on our behalf. So that's it.
Great. Thank you. Anyone else? Do I have any requests or adjustments?
Nothing for me this month.
That's none from Jeannie. Okay. Has the board had a chance to review the consent agenda? Do I have a motion to approve or any changes?
I'll not recommend it be approved.
Okay, I have a motion.
I just had a question.
Sure.
It was on item 17. The mud 6 portion of the surplus as discussed. When's that going to show up in our accounts?
I was gonna cover that later, but
Outstanding. Okay, so I will therefore second the,
Nope. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Page 6. In your financials. In the top, under other revenue,
Mhm.
183,509.
Yeah.
There you go. That's where it shows. Shows
okay.
up.
So there must be a little bit of interest attached onto that.
Well, there's
other things.
other things in that line item, but just
Okay.
$100 here and there,
Okay,
not much.
very good. I thought it was that, but I thought I'd clarify.
And your share is 183,328.
Yeah.
Like 100.
Well, I second Ron's
All
motion.
those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So I have a question. I don't know if this is, we can do this or not, but is it possible for us to move items 13 through 16 before the regular agenda? Move them up? I'd like to do that.
Do we need to take a vote on that? Or is that
Nope.
just?
Is that the discretion?
Thank you very much. Okay.
All right, so I'll go ahead and cover items 13 through 20.
Perfect.
First item, number 13, supplemental agenda to canvass the returns of the director election. So we do have our official results from Montgomery County on the election. I will go, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 candidates. I'll go through the election tally. Deborah Sargent, 86 votes. Ron Cucci, 92. Glenn Cox, 49. Pat Goodpaster, 92. Fabian Rose, 45. So our top 3 voters are with 3 positions that were up for election. Ron Cucci and Pat Goodpaster with 92 votes each, and Deborah Sargent with 86 votes. And we do need a motion to adopt the order, canvassing the results. Next motion.
You have a second?
Second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
All right, next item, 14, accept qualification statements, bonds, oaths of office, affidavits of current directors and elections not disclosed for our newly elected directors. So before we take action on this, do you need to form the oath for each of our newly elected directors? Who would like to go first?
I will.
Borrow your papers there for
Yep.
the oath.
Fine.
Stand. Raise your right hand. At the end, you can say, I will or I do. You don't have to do the whole thing. Do you, Deborah Sargent, solemnly swear or affirm that you'll faithfully execute the duties of the office of Director, Montgomery County MUD number 6, and will to the best of your ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and of this state, so help you God. Congratulations. Who would like to go next? Matt. Or your document, please, ma'am. I pronounce your last name correctly. Raise your right hand. Do you, Pat Goodpaster, solemnly swear or affirm that you'll faithfully execute the duties of the office of Director, Montgomery County MUD number 6 of the state of Texas, in which to the best of your ability, preserve, protect, and defend the laws of the United States and of this state? So help you God. Congratulations. And
That's all right.
Do you, Ron Cucci, solemnly swear or affirm that you'll faithfully execute the duties of the office of Montgomery County Municipal Utility District number 6 of the state of Texas, and will to the best of your ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and of this state, so help you God?
I do.
Congratulations. With that, we are ready to take action on item 14.
Election of officers.
Exception on 14 first.
Oh, I'm so sorry. My bad. Go ahead. Acceptance of qualification statement, bonds, oaths, and office affidavits of current director and elections not to disclose certain information to newly directors. Motion. I need a motion.
And does it vote till after this?
Need a motion.
I make such a motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
All right, that will take us now to election of officers. We only have one vacancy, and that's for assistant secretary. If the board is satisfied with the other positions, president, vice president, secretary, and the first assistant secretary, there's no need to take nominations for that. If you want to consider those positions, we can do that. But the way it works is we just consider nominations and then go from there on if we have nominations and votes and what have you. Any interest by the board in consider nominations for currently occupied officer positions? Right, we do need a nomination for our vacant assistant secretary position.
I would nominate Pat Kirkpatrick.
I'll second.
Call the vote.
Call the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Congratulations.
we move along pretty quickly.
Item 16, trustee and alternates, same drill there. We do have a vacancy on second alternate. Any interest in revisiting a trustee or a first alternate? Then we do need a nomination for a second alternate.
I'd like to be second alternate.
Yeah.
Any other nominations?
Nominate Doug Stockton to be second.
Second that.
Okay. Call the vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Great.
All right. That's taken care of. 17, registration form. We update that with the TCEQ after each election cycle because it has factual information, including who the directors are, what the term of office is, what the officer positions are. Since we have a new director, we have new terms of office also for Governor Ron, and then we have our new officer position. We need to update that form with the TCEQ. And you can vote on this.
I need a motion.
I move that we approve the district registration form relative to the election of directors.
Have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
All right, 18 is to update our local government officers list. We do need to update that since Pat has been added to the board. She is one of our government officers.
I need a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
All right, 19, training requirements, Texas Open Meetings Act and Public Information Act. Pat, this is just for you. There's a memo in your packet of materials that has some information about requirements to complete a training course for both the Texas Open Meetings Act and the Texas Public Information Act. There's a website on the memo that you can go to and watch those on the Attorney General's website. Once you complete, there's 2 one-hour videos you have to watch. After you complete each one, there is a certificate of completion that you can download or print. There's 2 certificates. If you can send those to Shelley, she'll put those in your file to evidence that you completed your training requirements. The good news is you only have to do it once. That's why I'm not talking to. So once you do it once, that you've got that completed. If you just want more information about public information and open meetings, then the AG does put out a handbook every few years, and they updated it this year. So if you're so inclined, it's there.
Thank you.
No action is necessary on item 19. You are supposed to complete that training within 90 days of being seated. I'm sure you won't wait that long. But that's the time frame. And item 20, conflicts disclosure statement reporting requirements memo. There was another memo in your packet, Pat, about that. And check the box yes or no items. Do you have any questions or think you might have a conflict either today or sometime offline? We're always very fact specific circumstances to determine whether you might potentially have a conflict for one reason or another. So just visit with me and see what we need to do.
Okay, thank you.
No action necessary on 20. Go ahead and back up.
Okay, we'll go back now to item 9 on the agenda.
Good afternoon. First one item to talk about is, so there's nothing really out of the ordinary, no violations for the April that you have, but just want to cover something you'll see next month. So the storm we had a couple weeks ago, on the wastewater side, wastewater plant 1 received 8 inches of rain in 9 hours. And so our average daily flow is about 3.2, 3.4 million gallons a day. With this 8 inches that we received, the instantaneous flow went up to 32 million gallons. So our 2-hour peak is 18 million gallons a day. The 2-hour peak for this event was about 25.6 million gallons a day. So a whole lot of rain hit in pretty quick, and it lasted for about 12 hours with the high numbers before they started coming down. But we'll get a violation for the high flow, but so the quantity is high, but the quality is down because it's basically rainwater. Yes, sir.
Chris, any idea what the combination of intrusion versus stitch flow would have been? Any way to factor anything?
The speed that it came in is more the inflow.
Okay.
And so the infiltration generally takes longer because, it has to soak through the ground, has to then go into the pipes. Most of our pipes are a lot deeper, 8, 10 foot, takes a long time to get into the ground. But I'm guessing manholes, pit covers, stuff like that. That's all I have unless you have any questions. Yes, sir.
That would be mostly from the retail parts of the sewer system. The inflow.
The inflow could be from both sides.
Okay.
It just depends on when it fell and all that good stuff as well. Most of the wholesale lines have been CIPP'd over the last 20 years.
Mhm.
So and reached one.
10, received information from the SJRA and Freeze and Nichols regarding the partial rehabilitation net present value.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Pat, just so you know, I'm Dan Hildebrand. I'm a Technical Services Department Manager with SRA. So congrats on joining the board. What I'm going to quickly talk about is going to be referenced on page 37, 38, and 39 in y'all's packet. What you may recall is back in, I believe it was March, we came, myself, Aaron Schindewald, Connie, were here presenting our 10-year project plan presentation. And when it got to the wastewater treatment facility, there was some discussion regarding a potential schedule and, looking at if the wastewater treatment plant was postponed. And we showed a slide that showed 2 columns of different infrastructure and components of the facility that we felt would need to be replaced or rehabbed if such delay occurred beyond the current schedule, which, just as a reminder, is to have the facility completed with construction in 2030. So we furthermore went to the trustees in April, and they approved an additional $50,000 for our consultant, Freeze and Nichols, to perform essentially a net present value analysis. But what would it look like if there was such delays occurred? And is that advantageous or non-advantageous for us to pursue? So that slide that showed those 2 columns of infrastructure ties directly and correlates directly to this table that you will see on page 37 and 38, where if there was an 18-month delay in essentially the startup and completion of the facility, or if there was a delay that went beyond the 18 months into the 3 or 5 year range. So the question we got from multiple MUD directors in that presentation was, well, what can you quantify, these components and the replacement of them? So what we've done here, though, let's see, it would be the 2 blue columns, the first 2 blue columns. That is essentially what we would be saying is a cost estimate, a very high level cost estimate at this point for completing those items. The last 2 columns is more or less just kind of notes, source of the cost, source type, to help understand kind of where those came from. So bottom line though, if you turn to page 38, a delay of approximately 18 months, you're looking at a total rehab cost of around 8.5 million. Furthermore, beyond the 18-month delay, you're looking at $33.298 million. So I will flip you all over to page 39, where there's a chart with a green line and 2 red dots on there. Orient you with that. The x-axis is the number of years of delay for the replacement of the full replacement of the wastewater treatment facility number 1. And the y-axis is just essentially the cost in millions, to where the red dots correlate with those 2 numbers that you just saw on the previous table. So what is the green line? The green line is essentially that tipping point or break point, to where if one of those red dots fell on the line, it would be essentially neutral, either way, to where what this graph is showing and where the red dots are on the left and above the line, it is not economically favorable to delay the wastewater treatment facility replacement. If they were to the right or below the line, it would be favorable. So bottom line, based on this task that Teresa Nichols was assigned, the results are it's not economically favorable to delay further the full replacement of wastewater treatment system. So I'll pause there. But if you all have any questions at this point.
So the analysis assumes replacement. So the 8.5 and the 33 are just purely sunk cost based on the delay to keep the plant operational.
That's where you're going is, those would be sunk costs, the 8 and the 33 of us, 33.
Yeah, I'm just curious, for $50,000, that study was pretty finite, how accurate it is. That's what a consultant does, I guess, and you have to trust the consultant's opinion, because if it's that fact finding, and it's pretty conclusive, I would think.
And kind of, I don't know if you want to talk about kind of the range and
Right.
the level of cost estimating that was used to pull this
So
together.
Pat, I'm Connie Curtis with the San Jacinto River Authority. I'm the Director of Technical and Operational Services. So I'm over the Tech Services Group, which is Engineering, Construction, GIS, as well as the SCADA and INC group and the IT group. So the question is to what scale is this? And what I would tell you is really what Teresa Nichols was scoped to do here was a very high level OPC. So they weren't getting down to the granular and accounting for every labor hour, everything that's, every nut and bolt that needed to go into this. Essentially, it was get a good general idea of the cost and let's see where we are versus that green line. And that's essentially where this is. So it could be, I think it's a class 5 if you went back to the American Association of, the cost estimating, class 5, which could be 50 to 100% up or like 30 to 50%, so it could be 50 to 100% low, or it could be 30 to 50% high. So it's a big range because we're just not at a level of design. So it's a pretty big range, but overall, I think what's important to note is that we are very, very far off of that green line. And so that's what's important, is that we didn't keep going to estimate further when we realized we were already so far off. And something else that we did do that Dan didn't mention is a sensitivity analysis. So there were some assumptions here with the green line. If you read in the legend, it says a 5% near-term escalation, a 4.5% long-term escalation, 3.75 bond interest rate. So those assumptions were given to us by the trustees to utilize. But we looked at it and said, what would it take to bring that green line on the other side of the red? And just the assumptions, we never actually could get there with anything that seemed remotely realistic. So we're so far away from it making economical sense that our recommendation is, let's keep this moving forward.
Thank you.
Just a couple of minor housekeeping items here. The digester blower rebuild, it says included in item 21. I believe that should be item 20 on the next page.
Which one, Neil?
The number 6, the digester blower rebuild. It says included in line item 21.
Yes,
Oh,
right. Yep.
yeah. So, and I've got another one. Item 12 on page 37, the rebuild of aeration blowers. And then included in line item 6, should be 16, I believe. Okay. That's, like I say, housekeeping of minor importance. That's good to keep track of it. Now, if I recall, 6, 7, and 12 were on the first tranche of projects, potentially at the 2030 threshold timeframe, correct? Or within that, shortly thereafter. They would need to be done. But they're on this chart, they're being deferred to the later timeframe, 18 months to 5 years.
6, 7, and 12.
Yeah.
So, Chris, you might have to speak on the digester rebuild, but the aeration basin one, you know, is something that's a $14-15 million project. Where, you know, that's something that came up originally with our PWBB bond fund in 2017, and we took it through a full engineering design. And we're ready to go to construction in 2020, but we put that project on hold because the concept of consolidation in this wastewater strategic plan came up to where we didn't want to invest $14-15 million.
Right.
That being
And then have to, yeah.
So that is one that we understand is a very significant investment
Mhm.
to where we want to be economically, you know, responsible and try to push that out as far as we can. So I think that's why that one did get pushed to the 18, you know, greater than 18 months, even though it's something we recognized back in 2014, 15, that we actually really do need. So that's one we're trying to push down, you know, off as far as we can, but there's a point where we just can't do that anymore.
So in regards to the aeration basin number 3, is there a requirement? I mean, repairing the wall, do you have a need for another aeration basin or basins while that work is being done?
We'll say that becomes very complicated,
Uh,
trying to repair
yeah,
that wall.
because 1 and 2 are offline,
Correct.
they're out of service. So you've only got one aeration basin 4 left while we're all on the same page here. Okay. Okay. Because this is an opinion, isn't the engineer required to put a seal and sign it? It says engineer's opinion.
I mean, not necessarily from a standpoint of a high level of this. I mean, if you'd like them to, we can talk to them about it, but.
Well, I just thought that if an opinion is being offered, just
Can
a
have them say.
consideration.
It's to me, this is an economic analysis of, you know.
Very high level.
A planning document, right?
Understood, yeah. So our 0 time on this chart is 2030, right? So we are in 2024 and we've got 5.5 years for something to go wrong. So what is an estimate of cost exposure prior to this start of the 2030?
I think that your question is what risk do we have of any of these things failing and us having to go and build something that's on this list?
Before 2030.
Before 2030, it's there, right? I mean, that's the concern that we have. Particularly the aeration basins concern us because there is a concern with aeration basin 3, as noted by Dr. Gaynor, that With 1 and 2 out of service, yes, they've been out of service for a while. That's been pointed out to us a couple of times, but we did identify that in 2015. We got to the point where we were going to start construction, and then the consolidation conversation started. So we deferred spending $14 or $15 million of the MUD's money. It's a concern, Dr. Gaynor. It's something that's out there that at this list, some of these items could fail and we would have to replace them and sink the cost regardless. The
Right.
plan is to do our best to keep this plant running with typical operations and maintenance and
The next 5.5 years,
for the next 5.5 years.
assuming there's approval to go forward with it.
We are positive-minded people,
Okay.
right?
I like that.
What is the status of the supplemental agreements across the MUDs?
We have 7 that approved and 3 that are still considering.
So I want to share with my colleagues some economic data from the Federal Reserve. Some of you, I know some have seen this. It's kind of disturbing when you look at the producer price index from 1973 to present, and it shows those years because that's the oldest, the greatest range of data that I saw on this Federal Reserve Economic Data website. So that's roughly when the original wastewater treatment plant or PARP was built. And I think SDRA acquired it around 75. Yeah. So you can see what's happened with both construction commodities, materials, components for construction, and then construction sand, gravel, and crushed stone. And especially in the last few years, subsequent to 2020 with the pandemic, and I guess there's the Infrastructure Renewal Act, and there's various competitive elements for basic construction materials. So I'm not anticipating costs to go down in the near term or long term future. The long term says it's going up. It's going to keep rising. So the more delay, the more it's going to cost, in my view.
Rule of thumb that we've kind of been hearing from, I think Freeze and Nichols brought us was it's about $1 million a month of escalation on the cost. So, every month that we wait, it goes up. We're gonna have to wait. Like we can't help on some of that, and we're here to partner with the MUDs as they go through this transition as well. And we understand that we need to take some time on that, but there is a sense of urgency to keep this moving, partially because of escalation.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
So inevitably, there's been conversation about the comparison with the Conroe facility. What's the cost comparison now that that facility were to be constructed today?
Oh, gosh. So it's funny, I did write a memorandum back in, I want to say it was February 2022, specifically 23. I started with the River Authority in November of 22. That would have been impossible. So I did actually run a comparison of that, and I'm friends with the city engineer from Conroe. And when I called him and said, hey, like we're getting compared to you, he laughed at me because they bid that job before COVID. And there was been a distinct difference. You could get a conventional treatment facility, which is what Conroe's is, for between like $6, $8, $10 per gallon. That has gone to 30 to 35.
Oh my God.
And so it is an astronomical difference, and that continues to go up. And the driving factor behind that is really the structural elements. So the concrete, the steel, and then obviously your electrical components. The electrical is needed really for whether it's conventional or it's membrane, but Conroe knows they could not build that plant for $60 million today. It would be 250 to 300. So
That's old technology.
it is conventional, and
That's what I'm saying. It's old technology.
yes, sir. So the membranes are the newer technology, but to be clear, membranes have been around for 20-something years. So we call it new because it's not what we have. But there's really not conventional either.
No.
But it's a good plant. It's working for them well, I believe. But it was expensive.
They have to install some odor control
Yes, they did.
systems
Yeah, and that's one of the concerns.
with conventional treatment systems. Yeah.
It is difficult to contain a treatment facility. Not impossible, but more difficult.
it costs money.
Yes, sir. Everything costs money.
There has been interest in some of the meetings, a couple of the meetings to possibly further develop that comparison of what it might cost to do conventional versus MBR. So there's been no motions or anything on it, but there is, that talk is occurring. See where it goes.
The footprint of a replacement facility would be roughly what the current plant is, right? So how's it gonna be constructed? I just don't see
We're getting.
how that's gonna,
So, kind of the conversation to Eric's point that we've been having with some other, MUDs is kind of running concurrently with the preliminary engineering, so not delaying, right? Hopefully moving forward with the supplemental agreement with the $40 million and, along with the preliminary design that's gonna have to be done regardless, which is geotechnical engineering survey, just different things you're gonna need. With that, kind of running a master plan scenario to price out what a conventional footprint would look like and how that might impact the operations of the. But the amount of property that we would need would really not change. How everything is set up may be different. And so, you know, Estuary is not necessarily opposed to that if that's where we go. And we probably could dovetail that in with what we've got if that's what the MUDs would like to see. So
That comparison would be absorbed in that 40 million.
we would do our best, yes.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we are right now on that. So if y'all are hearing that, that is a conversation that is occurring. And we are open to propose.
that number you provided for the Conroe treatment plant,
60 million.
the old number, but
Oh,
the new
New one,
possible number, 250,
250 to 300.
that's just, a wag.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done any real math on that, but it would be significantly more expensive.
Yeah.
And to your point, that their original construction did not include the odor treatment that went in afterwards.
They actually had done a significant value engineering exercise to get within the budget that they had when they bid back in 2019 to 2020. So they pulled odor control out, they pulled some of that, and then they're having to go back and put it in. Now it's significantly more expensive than what they would have paid for it.
Yeah.
That is a challenge. So it was I believe it was a 6 MGD plant. For right at $60 million. The other things that if you want to get minutia on it, $60 million doesn't include any of the engineering, the construction management, the testing, the costs that are upfront. So, you know, when we're comparing with the master plan from phase 2 of the membrane plant that's $288 million, that includes all of the engineering and all those different things in it. So if we backed up and attempted to compare a level of apples to apples, you know, that's something else to consider and have some information to help educate the public.
Has there been any discussion about scheduling a tour for the new directors to the existing facility? Yeah.
Working right now. So new directors getting a tour and also classes to kind of catch up on where we are in all of this. So you will also be pulling together thumb drives for every single MUD director. So all of you will have it that instead of us continuing to direct back to the Google Drive, we're going to have, you know, the AC water line information. We'll have all the information from the wastewater strategic plan that gets us up through where we are right now with TechnoMos and 10-year project plans, as well as your actual original contract with the Estuary and any supplemental agreements that we've had in between. So each of you will have that at your disposal. We'll plan to bring those back in June. And anything with the next series of education from a director will be coordinating for Eric. So,
Thank you. Okay. Item 11, to receive and discuss the draft of the 2025 SJRA Woodlands Division budget.
Presented back in January, or brought to you all the draft supplemental agreement back in January. There was conversation in March. My recollection, this board did approve it. And so there were 3 MUDs last month that did not. MUD 39, MUD 46, and 47. So we are talking with them about specifics of that agreement. But we have, at this time, we have no changes or require
Any discussion, unless you all have questions? That's fine. Oh, I'm just sorry, I'm sorry.
I thought I heard.
Just good information.
I didn't have it here.
Chris goes.
Maybe I was a little,
apologize.
I was like, I'm just gonna let him finish, so I was gonna say, okay, I'm not sure. Yeah.
So I have the budget for y'all today. My name is Haley Waffon. I'm with the accounting department at Estuary. Most of us all have that. But just so you know. We do have the presentation in y'all's packet today. The presentation is in the packet, and then as well as the draft budget, the actual, right here. This is behind the presentation, which is the line item of the budget. So in the presentation, I'm going to run through just the first couple of slides of it, which talks about the rates that we're proposing. And if y'all have any questions, and first up is the calendar of our voting schedule. So we're here to present in May. We'll be back in June for any questions that you may have. And then in July, we'll ask for y'all to vote at the MUD level to direct your trustee of how to vote in y'all will show each meeting. So first, I'm proposing to drop our water rate 5 cents, which is about 2% on the rate. So we're proposing to drop it to $2.73 per 1,000 gallons. On the wholesale water, on the wholesale wastewater, we're proposing to keep it the same as FY24 for FY25 at $5.65 per 1,000 gallons. So that's our two wholesale water and wastewater rates. Third thing that we have is the GRP pass through, or the service water conversion blended rate, all the different things that we have for it. I believe this on y'all's bill is the service water conversion rate. So that is a rate that we get, the GRP division in Estuary bills the ones or the water that we receive, or surface water that we receive, or the groundwater that we pump. So that rate is our third rate that y'all see on your bill, and we are proposing that to drop. One thing to note that the GRP review committee has not seen this yet, so it is subject to change if they want to change the rates, because this pass-through fee is a calculation off that rate. There's no other items that go into it. It's just a direct calculation, GRP rate times our blended rate to get that pass-through rate that's on your bill. So we are proposing to change that from $3.20 down to $2.97 for FY25. Highlights on the rates. There's several other slides in here with information that I'm going to go through, but we're just going to stick with the highlights.
Good with that. I'm sure we'll have questions at next month's meeting.
All right.
Okay. Attorney's report.
Nothing additional.
Okay. General manager's report.
A few things to report on. Notes. I do want to talk a little bit about the storm and how it affected the woodlands. All in all, that was 2 Thursdays ago. All in all, the woodlands held up pretty well. Had some issues in the north part of 39, adjacent to River Plantation. I think the River Plantation, parts of Conroe, north and east, got hit a lot harder than some of the southern areas. But we have a few hot spots throughout the woodlands. Those held up pretty well. Did what they do, but no other homes that we're aware of that flooded. Have some street flooding, but some folks don't understand that the streets were designed to flood. So it's always a re-education on the bigger storms, but is what it is. Yes.
Big side survived, all right.
To my knowledge, I've not heard anything from.
400 homes.
Oh, we're flooding. Yeah. So that went pretty well. I did want to report last Monday. You should have received an email from us notifying you of some damage to one of the water plants that caused a greater release of chlorine than normal. If you look at the map in the northern portion, that kind of square white box within the orange. That's roughly where the water plant number 3 is that got hit by lightning. When it did get hit by lightning, it disabled the chlorine disinfection system in the open position or in the on. And then the backup sensor that tells you that it's on also apparently failed. So as you can imagine, from that point, kind of just out, it started, sending chlorine into the system away from that epicenter, if you will. SDRA, we realized it happened. This contacted SDRA. We partnered to work throughout the system to empty tanks. SDRA emptied the tanks. We had all hands on deck as well as them to open up fire hydrants, basically to flush the system, just to dilute the increased chlorine water down while new water was being pumped back into the system. So that was Monday at midday. By Tuesday midday or so, we had about 95% of the issue done. I will say that y'all really weren't affected at all. The kind of demarcation line, roughly where it reached, was kind of halfway through Mud 60 and 47 there in the middle. And so as you can imagine, coming from the top, working kind of south and east, that's about as far as it got, as far as the increased levels of chlorine. So we're able to knock it out pretty quickly. So it was a good joint effort with WWA and Central River Authority to get that taken down. Did want to talk.
No residents reported the odor at all?
We got wind of some social media things where folks were smelling it. But no, we got a lot of calls that notifying us that fire hydrants were open. Probably more calls on that than the odor. But certainly folks were talking about it, it looks like, on social media.
Top spreads.
Mm-hmm.
Good or bad?
Let's see. Did want to talk a little bit about the director orientation. We're planning to host a new director orientation, given a choice, either June 5th or 10th. Likely will be a mid-morning start followed by a lunch type of thing. And what we plan to do in the orientation is go over things like, what is a MUD? What's the responsibilities of a MUD director? How does WWA fit into all this? How does SDRA, what are their responsibilities? And kind of talk about that. We'll go ahead and do a full introduction to our staff and who we are and what we do, and then various things that we do as an organization. So we'll do that on the 5th or the 10th. And then my understanding is SDRA will also do a separate orientation that we're probably more focused on infrastructure, probably a plant tour involved, and then talk a little bit more about the 10-year plan and the infrastructure projects that are within that, which we've been talking about for a while. But looking forward to that. We will today, I think, Pat, you have a folder that has some entry-level information as well as some business cards. At the orientation, we'll have an actual binder with a lot of different information to help you get up to speed.
Great.
Thank you.
We talked about the GRP fund refund already. Let's see here. Did want to talk about the drought contingency plan and the water conservation plan we talked about last month. That was required to be submitted by May 1. It's already been received and acknowledged and approved. So we were in good shape. Everything's good there. We do an update on the lead copper rule revision. As you may know, the EPA has mandated across the country that all municipalities must identify what type of water pipe they have in the ground, both on the public side, but also on the private or resident side, consumer side. So by October of this year, we're required to create an inventory that documents what type of pipe we do have. Give you some background, about 1988, 89 is when that pipe was banned. So it was used prior to that. The good news is it doesn't appear it was used in the woodlands at all. We are able to, through looking at drawings, through looking at dates of when things went into play, and then also utilizing some of our staff who has been here for 45 years that put those pipes in the ground. They know that what type of pipe they used. So we're able to create an affidavit that basically testifies that we don't have any. If we're not able to do it through any of those means, then we will have to dig at the meter box on both sides of the meter box to identify what type of pipes coming in and then what type of pipes go into the house. And we will have to do some digging, but we're hopeful we can minimize that with the affidavits and test and from our employees. So I think that with that, the only other thing I have is to introduce John Geiger to everyone, or to Pat, and have him talk a little bit about our communications.
Page 69, I believe, in your packet.
Mhm.
Communication report for the month. We are exiting the second quarter of or the end of our second strategic plan. So the focus has been on water quality the last 3 months. As we move into the summer months and more water goes into our landscapes, we shift focus to conservation. We abandon other topics, but we just heighten. So you'll see more on that next few months. Hopefully you noted more election information. This round, we put a lot of effort into getting more word out on the elections and pointing them towards the Montgomery County election website. Tell folks when and where. We now have rainfall data available on our website. Find that at the top of the homepage and other pages as well. So it gives you a 24-hour to 7-day summary right up top, and then you can click on that, and it takes you to a map. You can find our 7 different rain gauges spread across the woodlands. So you can really zero in on your local area, find out how much rain got your neighborhood. So a nice tool for residents, and and just one more reason for them to visit our website. The next page, we've got some examples of current marketing materials. As always, reminder to sign up for Woodlands Water Weekly if you're not on that yet. And that also gets you signed up for well, we have 2 different ways we send out emails. Most of them come through our constant contact list, which is associated with Woodlands Water Weekly. We also send out emails from WaterSmart. But make sure you're signed up for Woodlands Water Weekly. You'll get most of our emails that we send out as well. On the page 71, highlights from our recent conversation with the Holloway Infrastructure Communications consultant. We're now entering our implementation phase, gone through strategic planning. Now we're going to really get to work. And so in the near term, there will be development of a standalone website to house infrastructure information for the public. So it's readily accessible, up-to-date information right there for folks. We are working on the formation of a citizen advisory group and also forming customer surveys to help inform the process. And then happy to report we are now at 45% of all accounts registered for WaterSmart. Significant jump from last time I gave you some data. I think we were 29% 2 months ago. So and we're going to see that continue to climb as we move folks, all the folks that are currently auto paying for other municipal, we're moving all of them, say Maureen and her folks are moving all of them to auto pay through WaterSmart. So that's really what's driving up the registration data there. All right, any questions?
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
I did want to add on the WaterSmart. That's the interface we used to send out that notification on the chlorine last week. So 45% of the folks received it, 83% open rate, which is unbelievable.
Yeah,
So
no kidding.
I encourage everyone, your neighbors, anyone you know, just help them, educate them on WaterSmart, that it is a great tool. It is a great tool. I have to communicate through it. And like I said, they can see their leaks in motion.
Yeah. Okay. Trustees report?
Yes, you have that. Nothing major to highlight. There was quite a bit of public comment at the beginning of the meeting. Eric has pretty much covered everything. And then one other thing, I think, John, I don't think you mentioned, I didn't hear you mention, we'll be working on materials to help customers more fully utilize WaterSmart, so that they know exactly what capabilities this,
Getting them
you know,
registered is just the first step. Getting
Yeah.
them utilized.
Yeah.
effectively.
so we will have some materials coming. Okay, that's it.
Hey, is there any reason for us to? Okay, well then, does anybody have anything they want added to the agenda next month? Meeting adjourned.